Well, that's just the thing, Max, is, we the people, our movement, we've got to learn how to fight as dirty as the banks do. You have to fight fire with fire. So I think that, we're going to figure that out as we go, and they're going to be quite surprised, I think, once this ball really gets rolling.
Now, what do you say to people that, the bankers, who might argue that, well, if you put us out of business, which is the goal, and it's a good goal because, of course, if you're fighting terrorists, you want to shut them down. What do you say when their response is, well, we're going to have to cut jobs?
Well, we've been through hard times before, and we'll get through that. What we the people need to do is finish the job that the free market was trying to do over a year ago, which, if the government hadn't have stuck their nose in it and spent all our money, those banks that ripped everybody off would have collapsed. And yes, it would have been inconvenient. Yes, it would have been a panic for a while. But we would have gotten through it. The banks that had been responsible would have been able to start picking up the slack, and we would have rebuilt a new system.
Okay, so going back a year, 2 years, what you're prescribing would have been just to let the banks fail and pick up the pieces from there. And so the whole idea of bailing out the banks with all that taxpayer money, you don't see that as having been a good idea. Is Obama responsible for that? I mean, it happened during the transition between Bush and Obama. But how much responsibility should Obama take for having engaged in that faulty policy of bailing out the banks instead of allowing them to fail, as you would expect in a capitalist society?
I think they're both guilty, and I think they're both implicit in this co-conspiracy. And in fact, all the presidents going back 4 decades have really sold out the American people with a series of disastrous policy decisions.
Okay, policy decisions. I guess you're referring back to deregulation and 2004 when Greenspan changed the debt-to-capital ratio for banks from 12 to 1 to 30 to 1, the elimination of Glass-Steagall, and these other deregulatory moves that have basically given the Wall Street bankers free rein to commit their financial terrorism. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. When Nixon closed the gold window and turned us into a fiat currency, that was probably the first major hit right there. Of course, Carter's policies were disastrous and created all kinds of inflation. NAFTA under Bill Clinton has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for the working class in this country. And so all of these presidents all have a part in where we're at right now.
Right. NAFTA, of course, has really been shockingly disadvantageous for the American workforce and the American economy, as you've got like meat packers up in the Midwest bringing in Mexicans under the radar to work for nothing, while at the same time you've got mercenaries working the border killing Mexicans for another bonus payout. So they're working both sides, these mercenaries all working, and of course those mercenaries have to get paid, and since they are too chicken to impose the draft, they're asking people like you, Ann, to subsidize their financial and terrorism and their wars. And so you're talking about Nixon closing the gold window back in 1971, and this brings back this whole idea of the dollar and interestingly enough, gold. You know, gold by some, including Ron Paul in America, is seen as the salvation, as seeing a return to the gold standard might be a way to get this economy back towards some level of accountability. Have you put this into your mix, into your thinking, the possibility of your hundreds of thousands of followers to start buying gold bullion as a way to defeat the banks?
Yes, absolutely, Max. In fact, that's one of the things that is going to be going up on my new improved website, is the principle of sound money, sound principles, being able, government not spending more than it takes in, and having a currency that doesn't inflate.
Well, how angry are you, Ann? Are you angry like, Ben Franklin and the founders of the American experience? Are you willing to put your life on the line, angry? Or are you just agitated, angry?
No, I am angry, and willing to do whatever it takes to fight these guys, because they're monsters. They've destroyed our nation, and the American people have to fight back. And since things aren't really quite like they were 200 years ago. I mean, it's not like we can march down to the town square with our muskets. So we're going to use the internet as our weapon.
Now, part and parcel with that strategy, of course, is that you need the internet to be neutral, as it's called, and the policy of net neutrality, which allows for equal access to the internet, is in place. But, of course, the forces that you're fighting against, including the banks, are arguing that the net needs to be closed down and a series of toll booths put in by the media oligarchs like News Corp, etc. Is net neutrality also an issue that you see as part of your campaign?
Well, I would hope so, and I would think that if they start to restrict things on the internet in this country, if they start with this fairness doctrine or anything like that, we may be marching on Washington with our muskets at that point.
Well, it wouldn't take more than a few 100,000, really, to circle the White House and demand the bad guys come out. I suppose if it comes to that, there's enough people to form a circle around the actual White House and demand that the bad guys come out with their hands up. All right, Ann, thanks for being on the Keiser Report. We'll be tracking your revolution in real time here on the Keiser Report, and that's going to do it for this week's episode. I want to thank my guests, Ann Minchin and Stacey Herbert. If you want to send me an email, send it to keiserreport@rttv.ru. If you want me to continue to have more followers on Twitter than Stacey Herbert, then please follow me on Twitter. Until next time, this is Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.